Hello and welcome to the Greg Fearon podcast with your host Greg Fearon. And today I've got the amazing, awesome Tamu Thomas back with me. It's been a long time,
It
Tamu.
has. It was pre-COVID.
Oh wow! Well, actually, that time doesn't count because I don't count COVID years. It never existed. It's just a blip. Yeah, it's just a
Say
blip.
no more.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I am good. I am, even though we're saying no more about COVID, it's just a really weird time because we're acting normal-ish, but it's still not quote unquote normal. And should we return to normal? That's questionable. So it's just a case of navigating this new space we find ourselves in and trying my best not to get caught up in anything that isn't directly my business, which may sound really selfish, but there's so much going on in the world that I could be totally distracted by being all up in and feeling lots of rage. I just don't believe that helps me to be powerful. So, yeah.
Well, see, I want to dive into that point, but just remind the listeners who you are and what you do first of all, because it's been a while.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
so who I am, as Greg said, my name is Tamu Thomas. And before I talk about what I do, who I am is somebody who is actively exploring what I need to be whole. Because, and Greg, I'm sure you know this, when you are a coach or mentor, whatever title you assume in this thing, like I still feel a bit icky saying coach, but when you're doing this work,
Mhm.
you're constantly stretching and being curious about yourself. And I just thought, well, do you know what? At this moment in time, I'm really curious about who I am when I feel whole and who I am when I feel safe to be able to show up as I am instead of hiding bits and masking over bits. So at this moment in time, I feel like I'm on a pilgrimage. I'm on a pilgrimage within, but
Mhm.
not like in a kind of navel gazing, really insular way, but in a way where I can like find out who I am, like how I can be the best of who I can be. And I don't mean, oh, I'm so positive all the time, because you have your strengths that you like to tell people about, but there's a lot of strength in the stuff that we consider to be shadowy or negative. So yeah, power. Actually, I said that word earlier on. That seems to be something that's really calling me at the moment. So I'm on a pilgrimage to personal power. All the P's in the place. So that's
Love that.
a bit of who I am. Like, like the power, like joyful power. I can be quite a dominant person, like powerfully dominant, like not playing that down anymore and all of that kind of jazz. So, yeah. So that's that. And I use the term coach. I am a coach and I use an integrated approach. My background is social work, so social work really underpins a lot of what I do. And essentially, what I do is I work with over functioning, overworking, highly ambitious, high achieving women. I work with them to begin to really fall in love with themselves, their full selves, not just the part of themselves that shows up in the workplace or in business, not just the part that's on display, not just the identity. I help them to fall in love with all of their parts so that they can learn what it is they need to live, love, and work in a way that enables them to feel powerful. So that's what I do. And essentially, my mission, it came to me a couple of weeks ago. Like I've been experimenting with this work since I started my business in 2018. But I've realized that my mission is to help people enhance the way they live by revolutionizing the way we work. Because work is like the number one limitation, or one of the like biggest limitations on how we live,
Mhm.
because we think we live to work. Like consciously we think we're working to live, but unconsciously we've been conditioned to live to work. Yeah, so we neglect ourselves and abandon what we need in order to put on a front and show up as this person, and it's not serving us. The wheels, I keep saying the wheels are falling off. The wheels have fallen off long time. So I want the wheels back on and I want us to be driving to the destination of well-being and allowing work to be part of our well-being.
So there's something you said there about unconsciously thinking that we we live to work, etc. But actually, when I listen to ladies I work with, work is the first thing they talk about.
Yeah.
Not even
Ask somebody
children
who they
or
are, they'll tell you what
themselves.
they do.
Yeah. So how has that happened, and how can we start to unravel that? Or how do you help your clients unravel that?
How's it happened, or how has it happened?
How has it happened? Let's go deep. Let's go deep. How has it happened? How has it happened?
How has it happened? Well, if you look at cultural anthropology, I don't know how long ago it was, but let's just say whenever it was, maybe it was like 9,000 years ago, I can't remember.
Mhm.
But when we began to when we were began to domesticate ourselves because we learned how to um, create an agriculture system. So we weren't just what is it, subsistence farming.
Yeah.
We were actually uh, designating areas of land to grow food and breed animals for our consumption. When that started, and that was over a really gradual piece of time, and then from the industrial revolution onwards we've gone warp speed, but we were gradually going from a species that expended high amounts of energy for limited periods of time to be able to gather food and to create safety, to a species that benefited from organized systems of work. So,
Yeah.
people working the fields, tilling the land, herding animals, etc. So that's when we started to very gradually go from our natural, normal level of productivity. Because, as human beings, we are naturally designed for the level of productivity we need to sustain ourselves. Once it became organized, we gradually started to go into this organized system of productivity. So that was over like thousands of years. Then comes the Industrial Revolution,
Yeah.
and well, around the same time or just before the Industrial Revolution, I can't remember the timeline, but around the time Europeans dehumanized and commodified Africans and saw what was possible when you actually overworked humans.
Mhm.
And that led to the Industrial Revolution, and capitalism became a real thing. We then started to view ourselves like the technology we were creating to make life easier. So I think about factories and production belts. You turn the machine on, it churns out every minute, it does a certain amount of functions, and then you turn it off at the end of the night, if that.
Yeah.
If there's any problems, you just tinker around with it or you get a new one. So you will see, if you were to track each technological advance, you will see that every time we advanced technology, we expected ourselves to mimic technology. So rather than actually viewing technology as a means to enhance our well-being in order for us to live more and work and make work easier for us, we instead created a culture where we started to measure ourselves by the output of machines. And then that was it. Everything you did was valued by your output, and we all became commodities. The education system in the Western world, at least, and that's the education system that pretty much frames the whole world because Western culture is the dominant culture of the world. So then a education system was created to create lots of factory workers to fill the factories of the top 1 or 5%, and we've kept that up ever since. So our education system is designed for us to be compliant people that neglect ourselves to churn out the work.
Mhm.
And then that has been inherited over generations upon generations. And if you look at things like epigenetics, which is how the experiences of our ancestors alters or masks the gene expression,
Mm.
then it's encoded into our DNA. So even when we know better, it's very difficult. Like, you have to be really conscious and really mindful to do better, because it feels really unsafe to go against the grain, because that's been ingrained over centuries. Like, that was encoded before you were even born.
Yeah. So we've grown up. I've seen my parents, for example, work more, and that was always to try and get more.
Yeah.
But that then leads to ill health, and all sorts of
We've
things.
created a society that fuels consumerism because our GDP depends on consumerism. It depends on us feeling like we're not worthy, so we rush out to buy all this stuff to make us feel better when it never does. So we're constantly chasing a dream, which means then that we're afraid to leave jobs or work on our own terms or ask for what we need at work because we're so terrified we won't have the work we believe we need to buy the things we've been convinced we need. And what we really need is to look after ourselves, but the whole system is rigged that we're not looking after ourselves, so we don't feel powerful. So we allow ourselves to be influenced by others, so that even when we know consciously
Hmm.
this isn't healthy, this isn't working, unconsciously it feels so safe to even consider doing anything else. We get stuck in a spiral that serves nobody other than the top few percent of the world.
And is that when we start proclaiming, no, this is enough? I've got to start doing more self care. Because that's what I see is when people hit that burnout level,
Yeah,
all
so
of a sudden,
self
self care.
yeah, because also with that, with the toxic productivity, with the living to produce, self care is seen as a luxury that you need to earn, because we often think about self care as a spa weekend, a nice bath, getting your nails done, having a pedicure, going for a massage. We actually don't understand that self care is actually meeting our essential needs. But in the pursuit of productivity, we get taught that our essential needs are an inconvenience. And this happens from, school.
Mm.
Children go from reception to year one, and you are told to hold when you need to go to the toilet. And I'm not saying that children should get up any moment they need to go to the toilet, because sometimes they are messing around because that's what children are supposed to do. But what it creates is a very overt message that your bodily needs, that what you actually need to function as a human being is inconvenient, gets in the way, means you're weak, means you're not strong, means you're not focused. Therefore, we learn to suppress what we need. So we don't actually know that self care is things like understanding who you are so you know what boundaries you need to have.
Hmm.
Self care looks like understanding yourself enough to be able to say to your admin person who schedules your meetings, for example, or your manager, I don't work well with back to back meetings. I actually need about a 10-minute break in between each meeting. So therefore, I kindly, if you want to dress it up in a bow, I kindly request that I am given at least a 10-minute break in between meetings
Mm.
so that I can be my best self when I'm in that meeting. Because because people don't know that information about themselves, when they're asking, they don't know how to ask for what they need because they don't know what they need. So if you so we often leave it to a point where we're really cheesed off, and it's like, oh, I can't take it anymore. I need a break. Break? What do you mean? You got to work hard. Whereas if you're saying, actually, I have really taken the time to work out how I am my most productive. And what I've realized is that I need this break in between, especially when we're in this Zoom era because we're not in the office and people want to be scheduling back to back meetings. When you really understand yourself, that's when you begin to be able to advocate from yourself, not from a place of frustration, but from a place of empowerment. And if you're going to your manager or your team and you're saying a 10-minute break allows me to bring my A game, who's going to say no?
Mm. Yeah, why would you?
Why would you say no? But people don't take the time to get to know themselves. And then also, we're following all these people. We love a how to, a 1, 2, 3 guide to, this is the A to Z roadmap to whatever. We don't, so we don't want to do the work. We want to blindly follow somebody else rather than take the time to get to know who we are and what we need. It's like we believe that, A, we don't want to be needy. We don't want to admit we have needs because being needy means you're weak. Being needy means you're a human being.
Mm.
And B, when you actually take time to understand what your needs are, number one, there's a bit of sadness, grief, and anger because you recognize all the ways you haven't been meeting your needs. Then there's the frustration, grief, and anger because the people you were brought up by and the educational system conditioned you not to know how to meet your needs. Then there's the sadness that, to a lesser or greater degree, because of that combination, your needs have been neglected up until this point. So there's a lot of sadness, there's a lot of grief, and at times rage like, oh my goodness, how could we not see this? That you need to take care of before you get to the part where you actually have the data you need to understand what your needs are. And people are so frightened of that rage place,
Hmm.
they want to stay away from it because we've been conditioned to be good, especially women, to be good, to be nice, to be palatable. And what we don't realize, because we're not taught this, is that if you look at the our autonomic nervous system, if you get to know how our autonomic nervous system works, so the most ancient part of our nervous system is the really like high level parasympathetic, so that rest and digest part of your nervous system. But the most ancient part is the shutdown place where we would hear a rustle in the bushes and we would just drop down and hide because we didn't know what that rustle in the bushes was. The next branch of the autonomic nervous system to develop was the sympathetic nervous system, which is about activation, fight, flight, we know that as, but that's
Yeah.
like our starter motor as well. And then the most recent part of our nervous system, the part that really makes us the human beings we are, is the ventral part of the nervous system, where we're able to have meaningful connection with people. We're able to zoom out and see the bigger context and be able to make empowered choices. And we basically know that we're safe. Our conditioning makes it so that we have that shutdown phase and we have a lot of activity on top of that shutdown phase,
Mhm.
almost like it's almost like that sympathetic freeze response. It's keeping a really protective icy layer over all the stuff we shut down. So on top of that, we're being really, really active. But because we don't know what is down there in
Hmm.
that shutdown place,
And we're scared to
we
go
do
there,
not
right?
have the, well, not just we're scared to go there, we're constantly trying to get to this ventral place, we're constantly trying to self-actualize and all of that, but we're not able to sustain it because the weight of what we're shutting down pulls us back down. And we believe the only way out of that, and this is like classic over functioning, overworking, high achieving woman, the only way out of there is to be like in fight or flight mode all the time. But the thing is, when you make the conscious choice to actually start to become curious and start to investigate what is in that shutdown, like all those needs that have been relegated and abandoned,
Mhm.
that is conscious, that you're conscious about the rage. So that sympathetic activity that we're used to fight and flight to get what we want and prove ourselves, when we have that sympathetic activity because of rage, we get really scared of it. But how the autonomic ladder works is shut down. In order for us to get to that ventral, self actualizing, beautiful connection place, we need to go up the autonomic ladder. You can't skip rungs of the ladder because you'll just keep sliding back down. So when we have that conscious rage, we don't want to be in sympathetic activity. We hide from it, so we're shutting down again. So when we're making the efforts to try and get to that self actualizing ventral place, it's weighing us down because we don't realize actually we need to feel the rage, we need to befriend the anger, we need to take care of the grief, because that is going to give us beautiful data about who we actually are, what we need, so we can meet ourselves where we are and make our way up that sympathetic ladder, trusting and knowing that that rage, that real whoosh starter motor sympathetic nervous system activity is necessary for us to get to that ventral place. So that locking down bit, sorry, Greg knew what he was getting when he called me on here.
Hell
So
yeah.
that shutdown bit, we want it to be something really exciting and sexy and extravagant. Oh, it's a limiting belief. Oh, it's an upper limit problem. Oh, it's because these haters over there are sending me bad vibes. But quite often, what you will find is something that we will call basic. It's not basic, it's essential. So a lot of my work is guided by polyvagal theory. And one of the first things of polyvagal theory is that your story follows your state. So the story of who you are follows your physical state. So picture this, because this is classic. This is me.
I can
You
fully verify
are
this, right? I
a
can verify the
busy,
story.
a busy high achiever.
Yep.
You're out there doing all of this stuff.
Hmm.
You're feeling depleted. But the more you're feeling depleted, the more you're working, because rather than understanding you're not resourcing yourself the way you need, that makes you feel too needy. So you try to work even harder. You're running on fumes. You're burning out the burnout. Like there's cinders everywhere.
Hmm.
So you might wake up not as sprightly as you want to because you're depleted. So that means you're probably pressing snooze a few times. You're not getting yourself a decent breakfast. You might have fallen for the story that breakfast makes you feel ill, or whatever thing we want to tell us, or you're used to just grabbing a coffee. So basically, you've embodied neglect. You're used to neglecting yourself. So you're not starting your day with what it is you need to fuel yourself.
Hmm.
Fuel crisis, we're queuing for miles for petrol, but we don't stand up for ourselves and queue for ourselves for what we need. So then you're rushing around working. It's a really busy day. You grab something for lunch. It might not be anything meaningful. And even if it is, because you're so distracted, you're not even registering what you're eating. Then you have dinner. You might have a wholesome dinner, but by the time you've done all of that neglect throughout the day, that dinner's not enough. But you don't want to be greedy. You don't want to overeat. So when your body is telling you you need more food, you say, well, I've had a plate of food. It was a big plate of food, so I'm not going to eat anything else, not realizing that it's a cumulative impact of what's been going on in the day. So if you're not eating in a manner that's commensurate to what you need, the first thing your body's going to feel is, I'm in survival. So your physical state is that of survival, and that physical state is going to shape your perspective. It's going to shape your story of your life. So even if you've got really great success, you're never going to be able to appreciate it because you're embodying survival. Your actual physical body is in a state of survival. So then we think, oh, I'm lazy, I've got to exercise on it. So then you're just pumping your body full of adrenaline, cortisol, and you're wondering why your belly's getting bigger, you're eating less, you're working out, nothing's happening for you. So something that was game changing for me when I started to really collate data, and part of that was working with you, Greg, is when I thought, well, actually, if you're feeling run down, tired, whatnot all the time, let's just take a real good look at what you're eating. And that is when I discovered that my eating patterns, my eating habits were very disordered.
Hmm.
Some of that fueled by busyness, some of that fueled by growing up in an era where everyone and their mum, including mine, was doing cabbage soup diet, Jenny Craig, Slim Fast. Everyone was always on a diet,
It was
always,
something. Yeah.
always,
Hmm.
always on a diet. So the messages I see from that. So literally experimenting with, not judging or shaming myself, experimenting with what type of food I need to eat, the quantity of food I need to eat, when I need to eat it, and also for me, the ritual that goes along with eating it. Actually taking the time and thinking, this is my meal plan for the 3 weeks, and thinking, well, how do I want this food to make me feel?
Hmm.
So before I eat the meal, because I know what's coming, because I've got my meal plan, which I used to think was going to be really boring, it's so freeing. Before I eat, I'm like, this doesn't take long. My intention for this meal is to feel refreshed. My intention for this meal is to feel satiated. My intention for this meal is to feel comforted. Whatever it is I need to say, rest and digest for a reason. More time we're trying to eat when we're not rested, when we're not in a state where we can actually digest the food we're eating properly. My digestion has changed, my energy levels have changed. Even the fluctuations of my menstrual cycle don't have much of an impact now that I'm eating what I need to eat, how I need to eat it. And I even experimented when I got bored. I just thought, oh, sod it, I can let this slide. I can't. So now I know it's a non negotiable for me. And I know that, like I've known from time, but I love sugar. I love salt, I love spice,
Mm.
but I can very clearly see, because I've been tracking how I eat, what I eat, and all of that stuff. I can very clearly see how sugar and salt impact my state.
Yep.
So there's no put like really, it's just like, do you want to live good or do you want to feel good for that moment when that food is in your mouth, and then after that it's not feeling good? So that is the motivation. It's not punishment. Oh, I'm not going to have that because it's naughty, or I'm being good today. I'm just being good is a lifestyle. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't
Right.
mean I don't have these things, but
Yep.
I know what I'm doing when I'm doing it, and I'm not so there's many times I'm like, even now, here I'm sitting with you, Greg, I could really do with balsamic vinegar and salt kettle chips. I could really do. I could really do with that. But instead, I know, for example, for me, having this seeded bread that I showed you that I really like, having that seeded bread with some hummus and some avocado is going to do far more for me than those crisps. I'm going to get that energy that's going to last longer. I'm going to get the fiber and the good fats and all of that jazz, rather than empty calories that are not really going to do anything for me. And that alone led to better sleep. Even when my sleep is broken, better sleep. That just changing the food alone has done far more than what we believe we can achieve via mindset.
Oh yes.
Because satisfaction, if you feel satisfied, success, achievement, all of that, it just feels more meaningful because you're coming from this place of satisfaction, so you can register what on earth is going on in your life, rather than achieve that tick, run to the next, achieve that tick, run. I can actually take in the moment. I absolutely love the work of Dr. Rick Hansen, and he's got a really beautiful body of work called Taking in the Good. I can actually take in the good
Mhm.
of what I've done, so it actually registers with me properly before I'm moving on to the next one. So I know the next one, it's not out of desperation, it's not to prove myself. That's just how I live now.
Mhm.
And don't get me wrong, it goes up and down, but I've always got this place to come back to and remind myself, fam, you're not desperate.
But so many people, like you said, are living in this desperate cycle, and they're trying to out exercise it. Because I see that a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, Greg, I need to work hard in the gym. I'm like, no, you don't. No, you don't. But that's
Yeah.
what they feel that they need to do.
Hmm.
So it's all this extrinsic stuff rather than the intrinsic.
Exactly. Do you remember when we were training, and you said to me, Tamu, you're not working out, you're working in. I was like, oh yeah, right, okay, let's do this. And that is the thing. We're always working out, whether it's with our exercise and our fitness, or the actual work we do to create a living. And we totally forget that we do the work, whether it's the employment, whether it's entrepreneurship, or working out, exercising, taking care of your nutrition. We do that to live better. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, living shouldn't be secondary to doing. We do to enhance the living. The work, like a friend of mine was like, say what now? When I said, I believe that work should be part of our self care. Because ultimately, we work to earn money to take care of ourselves. And we are fortunate to be in a world and to live in a culture where we are have the infrastructure, and we're civilized enough to be able to, for the most part, choose the work we want to do.
Mm.
So we can say, okay, I know when I'm an adult, I need to make money, and I like helping people, so I'm going to be a coach.
Mm.
And you can actually do that. But we enter into this work life to support life.
Do you know what? I need a fan because there's so many bits and pieces. I'm like, can we talk about? No, no, no. We're talking about. So, how do you help the ladies you work with move out of that state of must do, must do, must do to I want to do, or this feels good? How do you do that?
Well, firstly, we need to. I don't work with people for short. Well, in terms of our lifespan, it's a short period of time, but I don't work with people for short periods of time. So I don't do 3 month coaching programs and whatnot. My shortest coaching program is 9 months. Generally, I work with people for a year because there's a whole load of um, accepting that needs to happen and then unlearning so you can relearn and begin to implement. I
Hmm.
do have a 7 week program, but that is a self directed program for people that are accepting of where they are and they want to explore themes that are coming up for them in a finite way, which is very different to what I offer people in terms of making the changes you just referenced. So it is firstly recognizing that you need to work with human beings in a human pace. There's no point setting arbitrary timescales like it's a production line. You're not a production line. You need to take your time. And in the beginning, lots of my clients have said like this feels like therapy because it is very therapeutic. There's a lot of talking that needs to be done to kind of like excavate or yeah, so that you're exploring what has formed your identity, where that's come from, and choose the bits you want to begin to hold, you want to continue to hold on to. I trained in non-linear movement last year because I find it to be a really beautiful grounding somatic practice. So with non-linear movement, and there are many other somatic practices, but with this one in particular, I really like it because it's very intimate and it helps you start to really feel how you feel.
Hmm.
So one of my clients, she was had a new product that she wanted to launch, and one of the modalities in non-linear movement is a calling in practice. So you're basically physically calling in with your body in whatever way that feels good to you. And she was like, I really tried, but I just couldn't do it. So I've got to face facts that I'm not ready. Whereas mindset will tell you to suppress that, do it anyway. Feel the fear and what's it? Feel the fear and do it anyway and everything.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And what she was able to do was feel into the fact that she wasn't ready. And because she wasn't ready, she hadn't actually created the product she wanted to create. And then she took her time and she's created something that was far beyond her expectation. With me, I talk about joy and pleasure and all that jazz all the time. The first time I did the pleasure practice in the non-linear movement training, I was curled up in the fetal position for ages. I had to really coax myself out. It took ages before I could really enjoy that practice. And that highlighted to me that I had a very good cognitive mental sense of joy and pleasure, but actually allowing myself to feel it throughout my body and allowed that feeling to amplify, it was alien to me. So I couldn't handle it. It felt too much. I didn't deserve it. I don't know what this is. So actually being able to register how it feels in my body got me to a place where I'm like, yeah, actually pleasure is my guide. People talk about what's it like focus, discipline, consistency. Don't tell me about none of that. I'm not interested. I want to be in a pleasurable partnership with what I'm creating. I want to really be passionate about what I'm creating. And I know passion wanes, but when that passion and the pleasure is so strong and so consistent and you're feeling it inside your body, you're actually then devoting your time, you're actually then able to be really committed, so you're able to really show up for this thing rather than it's another task on a list of things to do, which means you're working in partnership with life and you realize, well, actually this work is part of my partnership with life. What sort of relationship do I want to have with the work? Do I want to continue to have my work being some kind of abusive partner, or do I want to have a mutually beneficial relationship with the work?
And you hit upon a point there where you talk, because everyone comes to you with, Tamu, I need to work on my self love. Greg, I need to work on losing weight. And but just that phrase, that association with need is already coming from a place of survival. Is it just me, or do you think the same?
No, absolutely. So when I begin to work with people, there's a lot of education that I share because our bodies remember, but our minds reject it because of how we've been conditioned. Like when you look at I use somatic coaching a lot in my work. And when you think about it, these things, we know it. It doesn't feel convenient. We don't like it because it doesn't mean that we can very quickly do this, that, and the other, but we actually know it inside. So bring your needs. You're not a human being. Like we've all got needs. Every species on this planet has needs, whether it's flora and fauna to mammals and reptiles and whatever else. We all have needs. Bring your needs.
Mhm.
Your needs will always be there. But when you start to take most of our essential needs are known as deficit needs. When you start to meet those needs on a regular basis, they become less needy because they know they're going to be met. So if you're somebody like I talked about who had a problematic relationship with food, your body doesn't have to be constantly telling you, I want a snack, I want a snack, I want a snack, because you build that relationship whereby your body knows at these times of the day we get food. So I don't have to start, I want a snack, I want a snack business, because we know we're going to get the sustenance we need. Imagine a small child that doesn't have a routine, doesn't know if they're like, believes they're not going to be congratulated, they're not going to be acknowledged when they've done a good piece of work. They believe they're going to be shamed and chastised if they've done something wrong or made a mistake. They're not sure when the next meal is coming from. They're constantly hungry all the time. That's us. That's what we, that you know, that those needs we have is that needy quote unquote child.
Yep.
And if you continue to shame and admonish that child when it says, I'm hungry, I need this, you're going to get more of that. And that when you treat children in that way, more often than not, they either shut down and pretend they don't have needs at all, or they become very what we call attention seeking and very challenging because their needs are not being met.
Mhm.
So bring the needs, take care of the needs. The more you take care of the needs, the less needy they become, and the more you get used to taking care of them. It's a habit change. You're
Mhm.
going against the grain of your conditioning. So it's going to take you being really, really devoted, really dedicated, really committed to even when you feel like it. Like I was very impressed in a workshop I did for my clients when I said, you've got to take care of yourself because you want to be like it, not just when you feel like it. When you just feel like it, that's random. And I was watching some video, I think it was Brendan Bouchard or one of those really like coachy American people. He said randomness creates mediocrity.
Oh,
No, like when I heard that, I was like,
oh,
what?
oh.
I had to rewind it and listen again.
Ah,
Randomness
mm.
creates mediocrity. And the thing is, we're not talking about the arbitrary societal view of what mediocrity is. We mean mediocrity for you.
Mhm.
And living in whatever mediocrity for you is dangerous. There was some research done in positive psychology, uh, and I'm so annoyed I didn't bookmark where I got this information from, but I remembered it because I made notes about it. There was some research done in positive psychology, and it said that human beings optimal functioning or optimal functioning is when we work at 80% of whatever our physical and mental capacity is. That's when we live optimally.
Yep.
So if you are consistently doing randomness and getting mediocrity, it's going to cause dis-ease inside yourself
Mhm.
because you're wasting a lot of potential, but
Yep.
also you are not working at the maximum, not the maximum, you're not working at the optimum level where your body is functioning as its best. So you're releasing you're releasing what you no longer need. You're taking in what it is you do need. Instead, we work way under our optimal level, which means we're carrying a lot of energy that needs to be dispelled.
Mhm.
That shows up as ADHD. How many adults do you know, Greg, who now are being diagnosed with ADHD, or they're
Because
talking about being
because
diagnosed with
everybody
ADHD?
is either on some spectrum or something.
And we
Everybody.
probably are, because the way we were brought up really dismissed anything that wasn't in whoever decided what is normal. But if you look at the amount of um, energy we hold. We live very sedentary lives. We have a lot of stress going on. We're not moving. We're not working in a way that allows us to release that. So you've got all of that pent up energy inside. That energy is going to be very, very distracting. So
Mm.
even if you were somebody who was more than likely a child that was ADHD, I'm sure I would have been diagnosed with some mild level of ADHD when I was at school. Like the education system didn't suit me at all. But I think about now, the amount of anxiety I tend to carry when I wasn't, thinking about all of these things and had this knowledge. No wonder I'm ADHD like. And then you've got all of that anxiety and it's very difficult to manage. So we want to numb it. Dorsal. We want to shut that down again in that bottom of the autonomic ladder. How do we do that? We shut it down in unhealthy ways by next episode, next episode, next episode on Netflix, scrolling, 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 or we have very sophisticated ways. Doing this course, doing this program, working with this coach, doing this training, like constantly, constantly ingesting something to suppress because we don't know any different, we don't know any better, rather than be understanding actually all of this is stuff that needs to be released.
Mm.
We are conditioned to stuff it down with more stuff, with consumerism, with consumption.
Got to do another course. Got to speak to another mentor. Got to do another program. Yep, see it all the time in our
Not
industry.
applying anything, not allowing yourself to integrate so that what you've learned, you're actually able to apply it to your life. That's too much hard work. And that means you're going to have to reconcile some of the stuff that's going on inside. So rather than actually take the time to apply, we just move on to the next.
Next, what's the next course?
Exactly. Before you, Greg, the amount of people I work with who are on to the next course before they finish the old course.
And I'm like, yeah, did you finish the last bit? I get that with training plans, right? I'm like, here's an 8 week program, and by week 4, people are looking for the next. I'm like, calm down. We haven't mastered the workout from the last one yet.
Because maintenance is hard. Maintenance is boring. Maintenance doesn't have the same thrill of the brand new, oh, this is so great. Look, I'm doing this work. I'm seeing the results. This is fantastic. It's like, oh, what? I just got to keep doing this over and over again. Yeah, like how you brush your teeth over and over again, and you wash your hair over and over again, and you wash your body over and over again, and you clean your house over and over again. Like, that is it. That is life. This notion we have that life's got to be big and exciting and boom, boom, bang all the time. That's not life. Actually, life is a non stop series of boring events that are punctuated with excitement here and there. Like, if you're really honest about it, anybody who is living a life of pure excitement and hedonism, they are running away from something and then they crash and burn and they look back and they're like, wow, there's been no meaning. There's just been running.
Oh wow, so much fire. And breathe, people. Anyone watching this back, you might have to play this whole episode back again a couple of times. So I've got one last question
Yeah.
because that hour was just
I know. How dare it?
gone. So we
What
actually
is
got two
fun?
questions. Well, number one, will you come
Yeah.
back on? I guess is the first one.
Of course.
Yeah, because I think we've got some unfinished business here.
Yeah.
But number two, during one of our training sessions, you talked about how everyone tries to separate the mind and the body. Do you want to just elaborate on that for people? Because I think that's a real, we have this mindset thing here and we have the body down here.
Well, it's a real shame because look, 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 look at you and I.
Mm,
Mind informs our brain or brain informs the mind. That's inside our body.
mm,
That our brain, our mind is inside our body. Like
yeah,
it's a biological, physical fact.
yeah,
Our body, in polyvagal theory, it's found that your body like 80% of communication comes from body to brain, and then your brain computes that and sends 20% back down again.
hmm,
So we're alive. Like this skin is like a sensory, it's like receptors.
yep,
We're sensing things all the time. We sense so much more than we are conscious about, because if we were aware of everything we are sensing at one time, we would be overwhelmed and we would probably die by the time we're 15, because it would just be, we'd be knackered. It would be too much to process.
yeah,
But With the body, it's everything. With the mind, we can decide, I just want to be positive and keep batting away, batting away, batting away, and being positive. With your body, you can't control it like that. So your entire history, yes, it lives in your mind, but you can train yourself, which we do, to focus on the parts we want to focus on.
Hmm.
But your body's got everything, good, bad, indifferent. And when we start feeling how we feel, because we've been conditioned so much to rely on the mind and logic and what makes sense, anything that doesn't make sense, and that's part of the way we evolved, feels dangerous. We
Yeah.
don't know what this is. I don't know how to control it. Oh my goodness, it's going to make me feel bad. I haven't got time for I heard somebody say in a group coaching call, I haven't got time for a breakdown. I've got things I need to do. While she didn't have the breakdown,
Yeah.
the things she wanted to do, the things she wanted to create, up to now, I still haven't seen it. So we were both in a coaching program together. We're in the same coaching group. And the things, this was in 2019. No, it wasn't. It was 2020. No. Anyway, it was over a year ago, whenever it was. She still hasn't done it. If you had just allowed yourself to feel what you were feeling and have the so-called breakdown you thought you were going to have with support, because she had the support of the coaching program at that time, she would have been able to take care of that, understand what's going on, understand what she needs, take care of what she needs, feel safe,
Hmm.
and then do what she's doing. When we focus on our mind so much, we make our bodies feel like they're an unsafe place. They're a place where we bury all the stuff we don't want to know about, and we start to look at our body as a taxi for the brain, like a vehicle. And that's when we get overly into, and this is part of our programming as well, but we're like overly into what our body can do for us, rather than realizing that actually our body is always doing for us. It's not about what it can, like it's always doing for us.
Doing for us right now.
Exactly. Even when we're sleeping at all times, until we're dead, our body is doing for us. And I think that if you, we have been conditioned to believe that we need to control everything,
Hmm.
and we can't control the sensations of the body. They occur as they're supposed to, and we don't like that. That feels like a threat to uh, logic. It feels like a threat to intelligence. I was reading something that was saying it was a study that was done, and it's intelligence. This is a really bad recollection of it, but intelligence is a series of events that happen, and then our brain uses those series of events to predict what's going to happen next.
Hmm.
So if intelligence is using the past to predict the future, we're in trouble, because most of the time when we think about the past, we think about it through rose tinted glasses or muddy, filthy glasses. We don't really have a real sense. If we can be present with the here and now, what we feel and what we think, and know that it's an ecosystem, we think and feel together, and we are driven by our emotions, and we make peace with that
Hmm.
and learn how to work with that, we will stop talking about mind body connection because it's connected, and we will stop focusing on mindset alone. We will understand that when we begin to work with our body, that shapes our mind, that shapes our nervous system, and then the mindset we want to do, we will be able to do it with longevity, rather than what happens now where we're on this addictive, oh my gosh, I've got to do mindset work, I've got to do mindset work, I've got to do mindset work. It becomes a natural way of being because it's working in harmony with our entirety, rather than cutting ourselves off from the rest of our of who we are.
You know what? That was a beautiful place to finish. Where can people come and find you to listen to more of your fire and to drop some, to understand the knowledge that you have? Fire, fire, fire. Um,
You can Instagram is the best place.
yeah.
So I'm at live360, live360, LIVETHREESIXTY, live360, and I am going to be bringing my podcast back at some point this autumn. I'm not exactly sure when, so I'm going to ask you to come onto my podcast.
It'd be my pleasure.
I've revamped things and I've changed things quite a bit. Yeah, so just come and find me on Instagram, and then you'll find out everything I've got going on, because Instagram is my shop window.
Awesome. Love it. And yeah, we'll talk in the background about coming back and dropping some more bombs and fire because that was beautifully eloquent but powerful. I think people,
That's me.
I know this. So, ladies and gents, I know there's a few men that listen to this. Hit the subscribe button, go and follow Tamu, and really, it can really help you. Definitely, there's been some things that she's made me think about recently as well. So, yeah, go follow, and we will speak to you soon. Bye.